plan is that by 2030, we'll be having about 53-54% renewable energy into the grid, green and clean energy.
In Pakistan, we have always seen a very turbulent environment in terms of energy sector. हम कभी सुनते हैं कि अब हमारी generation capacity ज़्यादा हो गई है, कभी हम सुनते हैं कम हो गई है, अवाम के पास कोई clear picture नहीं है on where we stand.
Probably we don't have a very good planning, not only in the power sector, but overall for the country. We lack long-term planning.
It's going to be gross metering, they're going to change the percentages and as well. So it has always been the talk of the town, and people have been uncertain about whether they should be investing in the country or not.
I think this is the time to revise this net metering regulation.
Do you think that in coming times, having IPPs will positively contribute to the energy sector, or is it the other way around?
Government is also looking at how we can actually increase the power consumption. That is one of the solutions.
Yeah.
Because if the consumption increase, demand increase, we will be able to sell more electricity, so per unit tariff will be lower.
Hello and Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of DSG Podcast. Let's keep talking green. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as you can see, today is one of the different and special episodes that we're airing at DSG Podcast. I have the honor to be at PPIB in Islamabad today. It's Private Power Infrastructure Board of Pakistan. And I have the honor of having with me Mr. Shahjahan Mirza, who is the Managing Director for PPIB, which was previously has been merged with AEDB as well, which is Alternate Energy Development Board of Pakistan. So if you are one of the Pakistani residents, so you should know that PPIB is I would say the backbone of the power sector of the country, which regulates all the IPPs, which are providing the energy sector a lot of energy, which is helping the economy as well as the people of Pakistan. So today I have the honor to be here and have a word on how how PPIB is empowering Pakistan with energy, with IPPs. So we will know a lot about how the IPPs are working in Pakistan, what future outlooks are we seeing, what kind of energy capacity we are adding in the grid. So I'm really excited for the session. So we'll begin. I'd like to welcome Mr. Shahjahan on the podcast. So thank you so much for being here, sir.
You're welcome.
It's really an honor to be here looking at the experience that you have. You have given years and years to the industry. I believe you joined PPIB back in 2003. So that's a long period and we have seen the work that you have done. It's great. So I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for recording this podcast. And I think it's important that because we don't deal with the general public, so most of the people, common man, don't know about PPIB and its role.
Exactly.
I think this is good exercise actually to introduce PPIB to the more people.
Exactly, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, जिस तरह आपने खुद भी बात की कि PPIB की अगर बात की जाए, so it is one of the most important sectors that the power sector holds in Pakistan. But I don't believe that more of the common people know that what exactly PPIB does and how it was merged with AEDB back in 2023. So I would like if you can tell the people watching what exactly is PPIB, what's the role in Pakistan's economy and energy sector.
Thank you. PPIB, Private Power and Infrastructure Board, basically this was set up in 1994. I think it's a big back in the history that in mid-80s, Pakistan started experiencing power shortages. And government realized that the public funds will not be sufficient actually to meet the requirement for expansion of the generation capacity in the country. So government decided to invite the private sector to make investment in the power generation of Pakistan. So the first project which was set up in Pakistan was HUBCO 1292 megawatt, which was started in late 80s, and I think it got matured and it started construction in 1994, and then it was commissioned in 1997. So from this exercise, government realized that this is a new sector which is being opened to the private sector, and outside WAPDA. At that time, there was a combined entity, Water and Power Development Authority, WAPDA. So they were generating electricity, they were transmitting electricity, and they were distributing electricity. So at that time, it was decided that the foreign investment is required, and we need to set up an organization which can work as a one window facility or one stop organization, because the sector is new to the private sector, and most investment will come from the foreign investors. So there should be an entity which actually facilitate them as a one stop organization, rather than they run from one department to other department and one ministry to other ministry. So in 1994, when this first private power generation policy was launched, at that time this PPIB was set up in 1994, and this is we have a very high powered board. At that time it was chaired by the SAPM, then for a long time it was chaired by our Minister for Water and Power, and now Minister Power Division, and it has representation 5 federal secretaries, and then the chief secretaries from the 4 provinces, and the government of Gilgit-Baltistan, government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. So it is a very high power board. Idea was that they should actually sit down in the board meetings and the committees and decide the matters, rather than just moving the files. So in my assessment, alhamdulillah, this has worked very well, and we have a history of setting up about currently 56% power generation is in the private sector, which has come through PPIB. It's a good chunk. So our function basically include that, as I said, one-stop organization. We actually approve projects on behalf of the government of Pakistan, whether it is what we call unsolicited proposal, whether it is the policy implementation. So we approve as the first step, we approve the project on behalf of government of Pakistan. Then we issue them what we call the first stage approval, which is the letter of interest. Then second stage approval, which is the letter of support. And once after the letter of support, they achieve financial closing, which involves signing of the EPC contract, engineering, procurement, construction contract, the financing documents, the implementation. They sign implementation agreement with the PPIB. This agreement is on behalf of the President of Pakistan, and it actually narrate what concessions are available to these power projects and what are their responsibilities, how they will behave, like if it is a 25-30 years contract. So what are the responsibilities of the both parties? So that implementation agreement we sign. Then we issue, because we have a typical structure and there are some issue in the power sector about the payment. Then we issue a guarantee on behalf of the government of Pakistan. This guarantee actually states that in case the power purchaser is unable to pay, then the government of Pakistan takes the responsibility. They back up the obligations of the power purchaser. So issue that guarantee. And then during construction and during operation, we work as a partner with the private sector companies. Basically, wherever they have problems, sometimes they get stuck up in land acquisition. Their environmental approval sometimes take very long time. The clearance, custom clearance, and the custom duties, the taxation issue, the foreign exchange remittance issue with the State Bank of Pakistan. So down to the level of what I should call the Patwari and the AC, where the land acquisition is required. Land acquisition is done all the way up to the FBR and the State Bank of Pakistan and the Ministry of Finance. So we work with them as a partner. So wherever there are issues, we get them resolved. Where there are consent and licenses are required, for construction of the buildings and the power plants, they need approval from the provincial government. They need approval from the local district governments also. So we work with them as a partner. This is our key role. And by working with that, as I said earlier, we have added about 25,000 megawatt into the grid, and 56% capacity in the grid is now from the private sector, which has come through PPIB. In this process, initially, because I always say that probably we don't have a very good planning in not only in the power sector but overall for the country. We lack long-term planning. So if we just trace back some of the history, then when in 90s we started this private sector induction into the power generation, there was severe shortages in the country. So government was in a lot of pressure to do whatever could be done very early. So we started with the oil and gas-based projects, which was quicker rather than going to the natural resources like hydro. So then there was some economic issues, and then we did the nuclear explosion. So there was a drop in the GDP, and there was a feeling that we have surplus capacity. So much so that we were talking in 2002 and 2003, probably we were talking to India to sell the surplus power. But again, that at that time the GDP growth was very low. So power generation and the power demand has a direct correlation with the GDP growth. If GDP grows, industry grows, commercial businesses grow, people have more money to spend, purchasing power is high, so there is more demand for the power. But we actually, at that time, we probably thought in the short term, and in 2006, 7 and 8, we started experiencing load shedding. At that time, if you recall, in 2012, 13, 14, even in Islamabad, there was 12 to 14 hour load shedding, what to say of the smaller city and the town. So at that time, again, there was a lot of pressure on the government that whatever could be done, that should be done very quickly. There were riots, there were so many strikes for shortage of power. So at that time, I always appreciate that our brotherly country, our tested friend China came to our support, and we started China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And this was 2013 and 14 when these agreements were signed. So we actually at that time, again, PPIB took the leadership in that. And so far, under the CPEC framework, we are processing projects of over 13,000 megawatt. Out of that, 8,000 megawatt have already been commissioned. And another project, inshallah, 884 megawatt hydropower projects with the name of Suki Kanari, which is in KP, that is going to achieve the commercial operation within this month, inshallah. So that is great achievement. So in the PPIB portfolio, if we talk, we have all the technologies. We have hydro, we have coal, we have local coal, we have imported coal, we have oil, we have gas, we have LNG, we have some projects on the low BTU gas. So that was actually utilized for the power generation. So this low BTU gas generally don't have any other utilization. So we use that local resource in term for the power generation. That is the low BTU gas. So this is general structure and general umbrella what we have been able to achieve. And as you mentioned that last year, in fact, there was for a long time government was thinking, and there was a lot of suggestion from the stakeholders and from the multilateral that both AEDB, which is Alternative Energy Development Board, and PPIB are doing the same work. But again, there is a difference of technology. So people thought probably that there would be better efficiency if there is a one organization and two one window facilities. So government was thinking, I think in 2017, 18 also there was a move, but still both organizations are under the act. These are statutory bodies. So the bill could not be finally concluded before the end of the term of that government. So bill was in the Senate when the government. So again, this initiative was started, and last year this process was completed. Both were amended, and now AEDB has been merged into PPIB. We are the surviving entity is PPIB. So the other reason was that probably that the PPIB is a senior organization, and they have very strong successful implementation of project history of successful implementation of projects. So government thought that this is a better. AEDB to some extent has not been so successful in bringing in renewable energy projects. So this was the reason. After merger, I think we are trying to improve everything. We have done a restructuring process. You know, when the merger comes up, there are certain issues because both organizations have different type of culture, different type
Visions
of vision, different type of salary structures, and so on and so forth. So we are basically handling that. Most of it is done now. So both organizations are now merged and now working as PPIB.
Wonderful, sir. So there's so much being done by PPIB, and I believe this has to be brought to the public, that the positive side of the picture of the energy sector of the Pakistan. And as you mentioned, it's the 56% of the generation capacity of Pakistan. So that's a big chunk out of that. So, sir, given your experience and all the work that has been going on PPIB as well as AEDB, I would like to know your opinion on the fact that in Pakistan we have always seen a very turbulent environment in terms of energy sector. हम कभी सुनते हैं कि अब हमारी जनरेशन कैपेसिटी ज़्यादा हो गई है, कभी हम सुनते हैं कम हो गई है, अवाम के पास कोई क्लियर पिक्चर नहीं है on where we stand. So what do you think that what's the current landscape of Pakistan's energy sector? Where are we lacking? So if you can give your opinion on that.
I think, as I said earlier, not to blame anyone,
Yeah.
but I think as a country, not only in the power sector, we have not done a very accurate and very scientific basis planning, evidence-based policies. So I think that's what is reflected in the power sector also,
Yeah.
because power sector is mostly the common man is also it is more visible whenever there is some problem.
Yeah.
But again, as I explained earlier, there has been cycle in the Pakistan economic history. When we plan something, when we look at that, we want to add the generation capacity, then we are always optimistic and optimistic that there will be growth. Like we always talk about 5-6% GDP growth. But in the Pakistan history, maybe there are few years, but we have not been able to consistently go beyond 5% for many
5%.
years.
Yeah.
So these two things, the GDP growth and the power demand has correlation. So the cycle has been moving. Once we get into the cycle and we get the power generation capacity, there is a decreasing demand on the horizon, and that actually creates a problem.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of debate on the capacity payment in the media and in every circle. But I think this is a good opportunity to clarify that what is the capacity payment. In Pakistan, we have a single buyer model.
Okay.
So the IPP or a power generation plant which is set up, they only have one buyer. So once they put up, this is not small investment. When they put up power plant, they spend like $200, $300, $5 million. So much so the billions of dollars on installation of this power plant.
Definitely.
So the only buyer is the CPPA currently. We don't have market. No, we'll talk about the market later.
Yeah.
But the buyer is only one. So once they have made the investment, they have borrowed the money from the banks, from the financial institutions for setting up the power plant. They actually have invested their own equity on which the return is required for the loans. They need debt servicing. They need to repay the loan. They need to pay the interest. Then there are some fixed charges every month, like salaries of people, operation and maintenance costs, insurance, so on and so forth. So now there is only single buyer. If we don't pay them the fixed monthly payment, they actually can't survive. So like it's like what I give example, that we have rented a car, let's say for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years. So there are two part of that scheme. One is the monthly rent, and the second is the mileage based payments. So the same structure is here. We, for making them fixed costs, which as I said include the debt servicing costs, the operation and maintenance costs, the salaries of the staff, the insurance, the return on equity. So that is a fixed payment which we give them every month. This is like rent of a car.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is, even if I take the example of the car, nobody can sit 24 hours and run the car 24 hours.
Yeah.
So the same problem is here, that we have if we look at the summer, we have peak demand like 25,000-26,000 in the evening, and we have off-peak demand in the night, which is about 17,000-18,000. So that's where the generation is dictated.
So can be said that an unrealistic expectation has been set up for them that they're going to work 24/7.
No, they can't work 24/7. That is our problem. No, we can't run them 24 hours. Similarly, in the summer, we have peak demand of 26,000. In the winter, we have peak demand of 11,000-12,000, and off-peak demand of 6,000-7,000.
Yeah.
So we can't run that plant all the time, because this is the system requirement.
Yeah.
This is not their fault, because they are there. As long they are available, as long car is standing outside, that is available to me whenever in the daytime, nighttime I have to go. That car is available. So I'm paying rent for that. But when I run that car, when I use that car, when I travel, and I pay on mileage basis. Same is here. So we pay them a fixed monthly payment, which we call the capacity payment, maybe comparable to the rent of the car. And then we pay them the fuel charges. That is on actual basis. So whatever unit they generate, we pay them the fuel charges. So this is the capacity payment. Now, where the things have gone wrong. Things have gone wrong on the planning side, that we were expecting that our industry will grow, our commercial activities will grow, so demand will grow. So as the demand will grow, the per unit tariff goes down because there is a chunk of capacity payment. So that has not happened. So much so in the last 2 years, we have seen that the demand going down actually 7-8%. So that has actually put further burden we are making the same payment, and the units sold are less, so per unit price has increased. Major contribution, I think, is the price of electricity itself, and then second thing is the solar revolution.
Yeah.
The solar has become so cheap that everybody is setting up rooftop solar.
Yeah, especially industries.
Yeah, industries have set up rooftop solar. Large commercial institutions have set. Even the smaller consumers.
Yeah.
This what we call the net metering scheme, which is actually rooftop solar, mostly in the domestic sector.
Yeah, selling back to the grid.
So they sell daytime to the grid, and evening they use the grid electricity. So that has added to 2,400 megawatts. So that's a big number.
Yeah.
So that is taking a lot of toll on the demand side of the grid, and that is increasing the tariff. So I think this is the reality which we are facing. Probably 10 years back, 11 years back, when we were planning this thing, we were thinking that GDP growth will be 5% and electricity growth will be 5-6% every year. But now we are experiencing exactly opposite phenomenon.
Yeah.
We are facing a decrease in demand, while our commitment, our contracts which are under international law, some of them are Pakistani law also, but under international law, they are long-term contracts. So we have to think that what we can do. For that, if we go to the next step, what we are doing actually to correct this situation, government is looking at all the options. You might be knowing there's a task force set up under the Minister Energy Power Division, which has all these relevant stakeholders in it. So they are working on it and looking at what could be done. There are few possible ways that basically we can add more renewable energy into the grid. We are looking into that. For that, as I said, we are lacking planning previously. For the last 3-4 years, we have started developing the generation expansion plan for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
The last one, which is for 2024 to 2034, that is with the NEPRA, which is the regulator. So they will do their public hearing and they will approve it. So that will give us a clear guideline that where do we stand, how much power we need in the next 10 years, what technology should be adopted, which is the cheapest, what we call the least cost electricity. So that 10-year plan will actually give us that what is the least cost electricity, which could be inducted in the grid, and what is the demand, what is the requirement of the grid, so that we don't get into the. I think this is a very, very difficult exercise. Even if you get into the shortfall, that is again difficult. If you get into the surplus, so both way it is difficult. So we have to be as precise, as accurate as possible.
So it has been like a planning constraint in terms of short-term, long-term problem, and I believe that it will still take some time to have a clearer picture on what's going to happen in the sector.
Yeah, I think that will take some time, but government has done a lot of steps, like the legislation has been done to curb the theft of the electricity, the collection and recovery of from the consumer is being improved. So there is a strong drive on that. Then government is planning to privatize the distribution companies, or maybe give a long-term management contract, if not privatization, because for various reasons privatization has not so far been successful in last 10-15 years. Successive government has tried that. So no government is working to give long-term management contract, where there will be incentive and benefit sharing between the private management and the government, rather than selling the assets. Because the selling is a long process, and generally people are not receptive to the idea of selling the national assets. So that is another step. Then again, I think the government has recently reconstituted the boards, so we're trying to bring it the professional board and the professional management in the distribution company. But obviously, as you rightly said, that it will take some time that we could see the positive impact of all these
and I believe
actions.
It is the right one this time, because I would like to bring the public opinion to the matter that I believe that the government has been very reactive in the approach rather than proactive. We have seen problems coming in, and then we have given short-term solutions to that. For example, people complain about the price hikes, we reduce them, and then we get the burden because the revenue generation decreases. We see the shortage in electricity, we set up one more power plant, and that takes up all the time. So I believe that if we take up a proactive approach rather than the reactive approach, this will be better for the government, for the power sector of Pakistan. So on that matter, sir, I would like to ask that if we talk about IPPs, and specifically since PPIB has been the main role in that, there's a mixed emotion in that IPPs were a good option for Pakistan, or not, and whether it's in the coming times it is so, because right now we are in a lot of circular debt, and the economy and the power sector of Pakistan cannot take in more debt. It's already, we are having a hard time repaying that. So, do you think that in coming times, having IPPs will positively contribute to the energy sector, or is it the other way around?
First, coming to the question, in my personal opinion,
Yeah.
IPPs have contributed a lot to the economy of Pakistan. I mean,
Yeah.
if we look at I think this problem started erupting maybe 6 years back, that we started facing all these difficulties. And in that, I think the model we adopted for IPPs, I would not say the model was wrong, but I think nobody foresee that when we were doing, if I talk about the 2013-14 and in 2015-16,
Yeah.
the dollar was like 100 rupees, maybe less than 100 rupees. If we talk about 2013-14, no, dollar is as 280.
280.
And the problem is then when we talk about foreign investment, foreign loaning, if any international institution lends to these IPPs, they will lend in the foreign currency. So we can't tell them that you lend us in US dollar, you lend us in pound sterling, but we'll return you money in Pak rupees. So that is the problem, which is a reality on ground. So,
The currency
but
devaluation.
nobody thought that in this short process time, in the period of 7-8 years, dollar will be triple.
Shoot up to
The
that,
value
yeah.
of dollar will be triple. Oil prices, I think, to some extent were also not projected. Oil and gas prices, LNG prices. The Ukraine war and COVID-19 have seen probably the worst of the times in terms of prices. It's so much so that when we started the coal projects in 2013-14, we were not only we, I think the general opinion was that the coal is going to be dirt cheap because it's not a preferred fuel. So people will get very cheap coal. And it is a good fuel because at that time when we started coal, we have zero coal generation in Pakistan. So we started coal with that intent because this was the best suited fuel for base load requirement, and it was the cheapest fuel. So we thought that it was going to be very cheap. Everybody was saying that nobody is going to buy the coal, so it will be very cheap.
Yeah.
But nobody thought that the COVID and the Ukraine war, when we put up these power plants, this coal was about $65 per ton. But it crossed $450 per ton in this Ukraine war time and COVID time. So that's I think there are something which I think probably the planners could not foresee at that time. But again, I think we have taken the corrective measures. So we need to think about it, that how we can correct it, because obviously we need to find some solution. Where we are now, probably that is not the state of affairs where we can sustain for a very long time. We have huge amount of circular debt, about 2.5 trillion rupees, which is to be paid. On the other side, we have issue in the collection of the bills. We have theft issues. So a lot of things are being done. We're working with our Chinese expert also to look into that, how we can settle this issue. Government is working on their own also, that how they can improve this situation. But coming back to your question, basically, I think we do the IPP model or we do a public sector model. In generally, public sector model universally is not very successful. There are inherent efficiencies in the public sector governance, public sector management. But again, at the same time, if we just exclude, I think if we do the project in the public sector, we just exclude the return on equity, or we in fact reduce the return on equity portion, which is a small portion of the turnover. If we set up in the public sector, even if they borrow from the banks like they do, they borrow from Asian Development Bank, from World Bank, from IFC, from other institutions. So that all lending comes in dollar. So that is to be returned in dollar. So there will be some impact because obviously when private sector works, they have to build up their own profits and everything. But public sector, sometimes public sector is more costly. So the glaring example is Neelam Jhelum. So that's probably bad example to quote, but still that is one of the experiences which public sector have done. There are good experience also, but generally the world is moving away from the public sector and governments and public sector entity going into the business. That has proven successful because private sector always manage the things very efficiently. So leaving IPP is not a solution. Probably we need to look into how actually we can use maximum local funding so that there's minimum impact on the dollar. How we can actually bring in more local investors into this business so that there's a later impact on
more projects like
yeah
CTBC.
on the dollar impact, dollar changes impact are minimum. So I think that's what we can do. But currently we since this generation expansion plan is under approval, so we are not doing any new projects. So this generation expansion plan will actually tell us what we are doing. But one thing on the renewable side, the last generation expansion plan, which was approved in 2022, and this generation expansion plan, which is under consideration, there is no thermal power plant in that. Only one thermal power plant we have, that is 300 megawatt coal based at Gwadar, but that is the only plant, and I'm not sure that is going to move forward.
So I think finally something which is also good for the environment as well.
Yes, of course. Government has international commitments. We have SDG goals to achieve environmental consideration. So basically our current plan is that by 2030, 2034 or 32, whatever this generation expansion plan says, we'll be having about 54% renewable energy into the grid, green and clean energy, which includes hydro, which includes solar, which includes wind, which includes bagasse. But main addition, which is now being foreseen in the next 10 year and planned in the next 10 year, that is the hydro, and then to solar and the wind. So these are the three main resources on which we will be relying for the generation expansion.
Great. I'm really glad to see that good energy, clean energy is being inculcated in the energy mix of Pakistan. So I understand that what the idea of IPPs is and how the government's only focus has been to have some progressive measures for the country. But what the masses of Pakistan do not understand, all of these technicalities of how the circular debt is going to be reduced, how subsidies are going to be taken away, how price hikes are in fact going to help the country in one way. So they have this question of how their relief is going to be in place by the sectors like by PPIB, by NEPRA, by WAPDA, how they're going to provide them relief so that they can survive within the economic turbulence that the country faces. So in this respect, how do you think what can be a 50-50 thing? How can be we can create a win-win position by creating enough price hikes for the revenue generation as well, but as well as the relief can also be taken into consideration?
I think this is not exactly questions related to PPIB, but being in the sector, as I said earlier, government has been looking at this issue very seriously, and there are many proposals under consideration. So let's see what actually comes up out of that and what is finalized. As I said, these are the long-term contract and these are international commitments. There are foreign lenders involved, foreign investors involved. There is local lenders involved, banking industry is involved. So banking industry has lent very, very heavily to these IPPs and lent very, very heavily to the government of Pakistan for us making some payments to the IPP. So this is a very serious and sensitive issue. So let's see what best we can do. But again, there's lot of the proposal under consideration, which obviously will take some time to mature. So in the next few months, we are expecting that there will be positive movements and positive outcome from all this exercise. Definitely. That what could be done. But again, I think the issue comes that how government is also looking at how we can actually increase the power consumption. That is one of the solutions. Because if the consumption increase, demand increase, we'll be able to sell more electricity. So per unit tariff will be lower. So these are all proposals which are under consideration. So next few months we'll be going to see, inshallah, positive results out of this exercise.
Inshallah, I hope we see a positive impact happening on a very stressed position of the country. So, talking about public trust in the government organizations. And IPPs and PPIB's whole structure, it really lies on how the local people are going to trust the government or the organization, and they're going to trust them with their regulations as well. So Pakistan, when we see some of our rules and regulations and policies, they have been always fluctuating. For example, if we look at the net metering policy of Pakistan, it has been in news that they are going to change their net metering is going to be gross metering, they're going to change the percentages and as well. So it has always been the talk of the town, and people have been uncertain about whether they should be investing in the country or not. So how PPIB is planning to enhance the public trust by having a more standardized version of the policies and the regulations?
Oh, thank you. Let me first off tell you what the Alternative Energy Development Board, which is now part of PPIB.
Yeah.
So what we have contributed in this net metering system.
Yes.
When this net metering regulation was started in 2015, there was a lot of mess created. So every type of people were installing the system. So it works for a few months, and then after the system stops, nobody was there to give the after sale service to correct it.
Lots of questions,
lot of
confusions.
problem. So AEDB at that time, AEDB took the initiative, and they started the certifying the installers. So the first certification regulation was issued in 2018, and the purpose of this regulation was that the companies who are installing this system, they should have proper engineering staff, they should have proper planning staff, and they should do proper work. So AEDB make the standard contracts which would be signed with the consumer, because the large industries and the commercial consumer, they can hire the consultant, so they have technical expertise. But the small domestic consumers which set up smaller system, nobody was actually to take care of them. So these certifications give the standards that what kind of panels could be installed, what kind of inverter could be installed, what should be the warranty, what should be the standard contract, and if this warranty is not offered, what is the after sale services. So we started issuing sort of certification or licenses. So we improved this regulation in 2021 also, and I think currently more than 450 installers are there all around the countries. So all those systems which are grid connected, which we call net metering, so they are installed by these installers, and the result is that we receive very few complaints, maybe one complaints a month, 2 months. So that's the kind of service, because of this, has improved, because we have their guarantee. And we can cancel their certification if there are complaints which are not corrected. So I think that's a great contribution from the AEDB side, that whatever system is being connected to the grid, consumers are satisfied whatever payment they are making, so they are getting quality product and quality installation. On the net metering regulation, this is mainly, I think the pricing is mainly the NEPRA domain, but obviously government as PPIB have their input according to that. If you ask my personal opinion, I think this is the time to revise this net metering regulation. I give example. Initially, when this net metering regulation was set up, the purpose was to incentivize the people and give sort of an incentive to the people that they should come to the solar side and they should start installing solars. Now we have, as I said, 2,400 plus and maybe another 1,000 megawatt in pipeline. So this is the time actually to balance the things, because the small system, there is a limit to what extent these could be set up in the grid, because the seller buyer don't have a control. For large power plants, we have a control that we call the NPCC, National Power Control Center. So they control the dispatch of all the power plants. So according to the demand, according to the transmission constraint, according to other things, so they control this thing. But for these small units, we don't have any control. Whatever energy they generate, we have to take that energy.
And it's going to flow in the transmission.
And daytimes, I think there are many times when we have a cheaper energy, but we can't stop the energy from these smaller units. So we need to review this. Currently, if I'm not wrong, I think we are buying electricity from them at 27 rupees.
Yes,
so around 27 rupees. But while we have hydro generation, sometimes we have solar generation at 12 rupees, 14 rupees, hydro generation at maybe, that is very cheap, so 2-3 rupees. But again, That's I think the question, that whether this is the right tariff. So government PPIB and the government NEPRA, I think nobody wants to discourage the solar setup, but we just need to balance. I give example of that once you start, let's say, an industrial zone, a special economic zone, you say we'll give 10-year tax free, but that's not always free. So I think that 10 years period, if I take that example, is now over. So we need to review that, whether this is just balancing the thing, so that, because whatever tariff we are getting, so these consumers which have installed the system, they are getting the benefit. So they are selling electricity at some time at 27 rupees. Their daytime, their units are net off. But who is paying the price? The other consumers who have not installed this system, their tariff is increased. So as the government, as a NEPRA, as PPIB, we should think of balancing between all the consumers. So that's what the government is thinking. But I'm sure that while government and NEPRA decide this, there will be balance in that we don't want that the people don't install this. But again, as we talk about the IPPs, if you allow me to say that this is sort of a windfall profit which these smaller systems are now getting. So we need to actually balance this
out. This totally makes sense. The math totally makes sense, that government has to take into account the masses and not just few installers. So I believe that people should be more open to the option of having an adjusted price. It should not go away, but there should be an adjusted price for that. So while you mentioned the great work that AEDB has done for the renewable energy sector specifically, we have seen more standardization, we have seen policies being put in place, we have seen some of the reliefs like net metering and many more. So I would like to know that AEDB and PPIB, when they merged, this was one of the pivotal steps for both of the organizations. So in this merger, what are we seeing in the future? How are we seeing more wind energy and solar energy being inculcated in the energy mix?
Yes. This is a big step, and I think this is going to bring fruit. As I said, that going forward, we are looking probably no or very minimal thermal power generation, except the nuclear one, because that is strategic, that is cheap also. So that other than that, in next 10 years, we are not planning any thermal power plant. So the main role which comes to PPIB now is actually promote more and more renewable, bring more and more renewable into the grid. And that's what I told you, that we are moving about, we have currently around 31% renewable energy if you include hydro, and we want to take it to 53-54% by 2034. That is a big target. So adding that, and major investment is required in this system, and plus the major issue which is actually slowing down the induction of the renewable energy into the grid is our transmission infrastructure. Transmission infrastructure is very old and very weak. NTDC is trying to improve it, but again the problem is that the renewable energy, particularly the wind, that is very intermittent. So maybe now wind, we have over 1800 megawatt wind generation. So it happens that sometime it is generating 1200 megawatt, and the next minute it goes to 600 megawatt. So next minute it goes to 300 megawatt. Again, next minute it goes to 1200, 1400 megawatt. So I think that's for covering that type of changes into the grid, or shocks, what we call the shocks to the grid. We need to have a digitized online grid system which can balance these power shortages in a fraction of second, not in second, but in a fraction of a second.
So the mix can be more enhanced.
So there is no actually issue with the grid stability. So that is what we are doing. That requires a lot of investment, probably as much investment is needed on the generation, probably twice more investment is needed into the grid actually to induct more and more renewable. But that work is also being done. So it will take some time, but inshallah, as I said, we will achieve this target of 53-54%.
So while you mentioned investors and how all of these futuristic steps that we foresee and we plan, whether they're short term or long term, I think the investors play a long part. So here I would like to mention something about what's happening in the country, that now, considering the times are tough, we see many people leaving Pakistan. We have seen a brain drain like never, and people, more of the skilled people are going outside Pakistan. But there's a brighter side to that picture, that in a way the money and the skills are coming back to the country one way or another. So then again there comes the foreign investors, the overseas Pakistanis who can look into the projects in Pakistan. Like we have many competitive projects. We have CTBCM now, which is a futuristic project, and people can invest in such projects. So what would be your message to the overseas Pakistanis, and what can you say are the incentives if they're looking to invest in the power sector of Pakistan?
We have policies actually. I think one thing, we have seen this difficult time.
Yeah.
But again, what generally, if you look at when Pakistan started thinking early 90s that we will bring private sector into the power nation and the power sector, there's no look back actually. So far, we have seen many changes in the governments, the political setup and everything.
Definitely.
But nobody is saying that we don't want a private investment. So everybody, every government, every stakeholder says that we need private investment. We want to encourage private investment. What is now happening, I think only probably the form of investment is changing a bit. We have maybe in next short span, we don't need much investment in the new projects. Rather, we are looking more investment from the private sector on the privatization of existing unit, whether it is a power sector, whether it is the PIA, whether it is the other industries like steel mill and everything. So government want to bring in more investment and more role of the private sector. So in that context, private sector is always welcome. So only I think the dimension is changing. Probably new projects for some time, there is no need for, there is little need for the new projects. But again, I think in the renewable energy, once this IGSEP is approved, we are seeing a lot of room for the solar and wind energy. And along with that, we need to upgrade our grid.
Right. I think exciting times are ahead for the solar and wind energy sector of Pakistan. So, so one of the projects that always excites me, and it's something new in the power sector of Pakistan, it's CTBCM, as this is something new, competitive bidding process and all that, and having local investors. And again, it's a solar energy project, so it's helping the environment, and it's also a very clean energy project. So, tell us a little about that. How PPIB is playing a role in that, and how are we looking at the future implications of that project?
This is a very good initiative on the cards for the last few years. Now everything has been set up. This is actually a wholesale trading market for the electricity. Obviously, as it happened in other countries, it will happen in Pakistan also. When we start, initially there will be very little quantum which will be traded, but again it will give an opportunity to the private sector to buy and sell, rather than just buying from the distribution companies, to buy and sell according to their own contract. So this is a very good initiative. I think the dry run, or what we call the test run, has been done. So we should be seeing this market operating very soon. But again, the quantum coming on that will take some time. But our distribution companies again see is a bit of a threat to the grid, because what they expect to happen, that first the private trading or private buying selling will happen between the premier customer. These are industrial customers, these are commercial customer, which not only pay higher tariff, which not only pay in a timely manner, which actually subsidize the other consumer also. So because of contraction of the economy and slow industrial growth, what we have seen that our 58 to 60% electricity being sold to the domestic consumer currently. So if further industry and commercial consumer goes out, so that will mean actually the domestic tariff will further increase. So that is to some extent I see a real problem. So government is trying to fix it, that what should be the right tariff, because once we open this market, if let's say a seller is sitting in Peshawar selling electricity from hydroelectricity to a party in Lahore or party in Karachi, so there will be a wheeling on the transmission line. So the NTDC and distribution companies, disclosed transmission line, will be available for wheeling of the power. So they will be actually paying the charges, wheeling charges, what we call, just like toll on the motorway. So that price is actually which will actually determine the feasibility of this market, and we need to set this price right, because we don't put too much burden on the remaining domestic consumer once we once we start this competitive trading market. But again, the solution is the competition, because what, as I said earlier, what we see in the public sector, there are a lot of inefficiencies. Unless we have a competition, and even public sector has to compete to sell electricity to the consumer, we will not see much improvement in the performance and the efficiency. So this is a good initiative. In this PPIB role, what we call it is at the independent auction administrator. So whatever power discos require under this regime, there will be two streams. One is the people will be buying and selling. This will be basically wholesale trading, so large buyer will be there, not the domestic consumer or smaller consumer. So they will be buying and selling on the on this exchange or the market. At the same time, the distribution companies has to supply power to their own consumers, because under the law, under the NEPRA regulation, they are supplier of last resort. So they are to be fined very heavily penalties if they are unable to supply power at some time because they don't have power. So whatever generation these distribution companies need, that is the job of the PPIB. They will they may combine the requirement of the 3-4 distribution companies, and then we decide that what should be the procurement plan. If it is a renewable energy, what should be the right side of the project, right size of the project, when we should go to the market and advertise this and get the bids, and so that when the requirement comes to the grid, that's electricity is available. So that is the key role in that. In that, the role again remains same, which we have currently to some extent, that we will design the project, we will actually design the security package agreement, which is the agreements with these IPPs. We get approval of the government, although this will be signed by the DISCOs, as currently the power purchase agreement is signed by the CPPA. But again, the coordination and getting approval from the government and making standardized the agreement, because generally if there is no standard agreement, the investors are a bit reluctant to know that what they are going to sign, what is in the cards going forward. So we develop standard agreement, we get approval from the government, and then those agreement even today are available on our website. So that is I think the best policy for the investors, so that they know upfront that what they are going to sign, what are the terms and conditions under which they will be operating in the next 20-25 years. So that role will stay with the PPIB. Rather, additional role of planning will come. Currently we don't do the planning, but in the next phase we'll also be planning also, that let's say in 2029 we need 500 megawatt of solar electricity. So when we are going to start this, where the project will be located, whether it will be one project of 500 megawatt, two projects of 250 megawatt, or so on and so forth, and how it will be connected to the distribution system. So that is important role which PPIB is going to take going forward also.
Definitely. I think this is the future of energy in a country like Pakistan, and I'm really excited to see when this project will be operational in Pakistan, and we'll be seeing how this new and interesting concept will be happening. So just the last question on this matter, that while we're talking about inculcating so much energy in the system, we are talking about new projects, we're talking about more solar energy, we're talking about more giving back to the grid, and you also mentioned that PPIB is dealing with the DISCOs regarding the pricing as well as how the wheeling will be done. Do you think that right now the transmission system of Pakistan is ready for such a change, or do we need to highly invest to upgrade that as well?
The short answer is we need to heavily invest into that. There's a lot of technological improvement is needed, a lot of expansion is required, because currently our system is even not capable to transmit the power which is available from these large grid connected IPPs. We face problem from south, where we have our coal power plants, our nuclear power plants, from evacuation of power to the center. Our power consumption, more than 65% is in the center of the country. This triangle, Faisalabad, Lahore, Gujranwala, Sheikhupura, this triangle, and the Multan, these distribution companies, so they consume about 65%. And our major constraint in the transmission side is that our hydropower generation is in the north, and our thermal power generation mostly is in the south, while demand is in the center of the country. So a lot of investment will be needed in the upgradation of the transmission system, and even into the distribution system also, because that is also very old and it's actually not capable of supplying more power to the system.
Exactly. So, sir, lastly, it has been a wonderful conversation, and it was really thought provoking knowing about all the work that's being done by PPIB and AEDB and the rest of the energy sector of Pakistan. So, I would like to have your opinion on. I always like to ask my guests this question regarding the future outlook, and the whole conversation has been about that how we need to have long term plans. So, what do you see? How do you see the energy sector of Pakistan in, let's say, coming 10 years?
I think this is probably one of the most difficult questions you have asked, and probably not for me, for anyone,
Yes.
basically. As currently we're in the process of redoing something, doing something, planning something. So everything at this stage is in the planning phase, in the evaluation phase. So, but one thing, as I said earlier, I'm optimistic that we will come out of this difficult situation. Next 10 year is a long time in terms of implementation of the policy. So if we come up in next 6 to 8 months, we actually really plan that how we want to get out of these things. There are many things being done. There's some debt reprofiling or debt extension talk is going with the Chinese lenders. So similarly, there is discussion with the IPPs that what they can actually do the support, because they are our partner. What I say, and I think that's the reality. They are not here to do one-off transaction on one-off business that there is a contract they will complete and then they will go off. But their contract is like 20-25 years. So they are our partner now in the country, and they are our partner in implementation of all these policies. We are discussing with the IPPs, and we getting opinion from all the stakeholders that what best could be done. So that there, as you mentioned, rightly mentioned, their investor confidence is there, and whatever we do with the mutual consultation. So there's a lot of being done. So hopefully in the next 10 year, rather before 10 year, we should be on the right path.
Right path, inshallah. So can we say that we're looking at a brighter future of Pakistan?
Inshallah.
Thank you so much, sir. It has been wonderful. Thank you for taking out time. And for the people watching, I think there is a brighter future for Pakistan, and it's in the cards, it's near, and we are foreseeing it for especially the energy sector of Pakistan. So the right thing as the citizens of Pakistan would be to be optimistic about what the future holds. So thank you, sir, thank you for joining.
Just one final message. I think you are, since you are saying we're talking to the people of Pakistan, but I would suggest that as a nation, we don't work in cooperation with each other.
Definitely.
So in terms of power sector, what I would request to the people that if my neighbor is stealing electricity, I know, or my third neighbor is stealing electricity, and for which I have to pay, or my electricity is shut down for 10 hours in a day. So we should try to work around that. We should, as a neighbor relationship, we should try to, number one, motivate them that they should not do this, because this is not hurting them, it is hurting the whole community and the whole nation. And similarly, they should cooperate wherever law enforcing agencies are basically trying to get round up these people. So they should coordinate rather than coming on the street. Obviously, if something is wrongly done by these agencies, there is a reason to protest. But just the protest that they are stopping us from stealing electricity or putting a kunda on the wire, I think there people should not support these people, and they should try to.
I think the people need to understand that the government is at their service and working for them. So the cooperation should be there from both ends.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely. Thank you, sir, for your thoughts, and thank you so much to the people who joined. We'll be back with another episode very soon. Thank you for joining. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.